So today we'll be learning about some AI tools that are hot. AI is changing every day, it's evolving. It's kind of hard to keep up. So I think one of the ways we're gonna navigate around that is learn them ourselves and teach it to the campus body. Tech Club, our mission is to really empower everybody to learn what tools and technologies are around. We want to leverage our industry connections, alumni, and students who have been in the industry already. So try to make the most out of it. And today we have Nathanael Lee, one of our VPs. He has 8 years of experience doing product management for EdTech companies. So I think we're in safe hands when he teaches us what tools are available, how AI is evolving, and what we can do with it. So I think without further ado, I think I'm going to let.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm excited to give our kickoff workshop for the semester. So this is a topic that I've been passionate about the past couple of years. Ever since ChatGPT came out, my company is doing a lot with it. I worked on an AI strategy for the company, and I had a couple of friends who are really passionate about the space. I've always kind of been cautious about AI. As with any new technology, like nuclear technology, we have to think about all the different considerations. But I think about it the same way I think about nuclear technology. It is extremely powerful. It enables a lot of capabilities. It's also enabling a lot of bad actors. And so the way that we think about it is just how can we really leverage it to unlock our entrepreneurial capabilities. So I've kind of broken today's workshop as an AI for Students overview into the student journey, the research journey, and then some of the entrepreneurial toolkits. And along the way, I'll talk a little bit about how I have set up my AI process. So let's get into it. So just setting the stage, I'm a strategy guy, so I always like to talk big picture. How do I think about AI use, right? We're at Babson. What's a framework that we can use? So a couple concepts just to get us on the same page. When we're talking about AI in this presentation, there's 3 main uses that I'm going to be referring to. There's artificial intelligence, which is basically all technology that simulates human learning intelligence. It can be everything from your Facebook, TikTok feeds, to the Spotify recommendations, to the more advanced like generative AI or deep learning models. It can be anything from an agent that teaches itself how to play Minecraft and navigates through that, to self-driving cars. That is all in the purview of artificial intelligence. When we talk about generative AI, that's what a lot of people these days think about. That's like large language models. So like Claude, ChatGPT, it's anything that can produce content. A lot of that content is text, but we're also seeing increasingly like videos, images, and code. Code has been a really big use case, and it's a very powerful unlock. I think the coding use case is one of the most under-leveraged opportunities right now, because when we think about all of the technology around us, the ability to do like hardcore computing has never been available to the non-techies until now. And that's where generative AI as a language model that knows how to speak computer language is very effective. The third concept is AI agents. So this is the idea that rather than simply giving you information or answering a question or generating content, the AI agent can actually take actions on your behalf. So a lot of us have maybe had the frustrating experience of being on the line with like a chatbot that doesn't seem like it has any autonomy to do anything, right? The future of agentic chatbots, for example, are chatbots that are actually empowered to say, you know, here's the information about our policy, here's what I can do for you, and actually I'm going to go ahead and make these changes on your behalf. And so a lot of this, when we think about AI agents, it goes beyond just simply giving you the information, but actually interacting with the systems. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about how I use AI agents with Claude Code today. Any questions before I go forward? Also, welcome. All right, so we'll keep going. And we do have a couple people on the WebEx. So if you do want to make a comment, feel free to just kind of raise your hand or drop a comment in the chat and someone will monitor that. All right, so high level, why is everyone talking about AI? I don't think this is super necessary, but strategy, guys. So number one, everyone's spending trillions of dollars on it. So at Babson, I think that kind of is our answer. Number two, generative AI, 2/3 of all organizations are already using it. That's a McKinsey report. And number three, by 2028, 40% of AI usage is expected to come from agents. That's a Gartner report, that's a projection. who knows? But a lot in these directions, AI, generative AI, and AI agents. So my framework, when I think about AI, I really think about it as a force multiplier, right? Like as with any tool, how can we leverage this to enable new human potential? So for me, there's kind of like 4 quadrants that I think about AI. There's, can you get more done in the day? Can you deepen your analysis and understanding of areas? For example, if there's like a large scale data set, there's this whole concept of like qualitative research at scale, right? You may have heard about like qualitative is like surveys, talking to customers, doing interviews, and then quantitative, it's like large scale data analysis. Up until now, it has seemed impossible to merge those two together, to do something like that would theoretically have been called qual at scale. This idea that like maybe you can now get like hundreds of customer interviews and merge all of that with quantitative data points using like a sentiment analysis. That is now becoming increasingly possible. And so these types of analyses that we previously would have been like, let's just do some sampling or let's just do some quantitative research can now get a lot deeper. The third piece for me that I think is really important is inspiring new ideas. As with any kind of technology that has access to the entirety of human knowledge, there are a lot of things that we might not think about that are there that can be tapped and really exciting. Then the fourth one is just unlocking new abilities. It can be new code, new applications. There's a lot of value being created with AI, even in the midst of what a lot of people might see as an AI bubble, myself included. I had a brief exchange with grad CCD about this because I think it is really important to think about what are the times when we shouldn't use AI and what are some of the considerations. And the way I think about it, again, is just a framework, 3 questions to ask before you use AI. Is my use of AI here likely to make the final output a lot less reliable? Then probably not a good fit yet because the capabilities either aren't there or it's a uniquely human chassis. Second, is it going to hurt my ability to learn important skills? And let's put aside the fact that you're at Babson and that you're in a school program. Like, let's just say that doesn't matter whatsoever. In the next few years, the most important skills that employers are going to be looking for are how do you leverage the tools around you to like make a strategic impact wherever you are, whatever job you have. So if your approach to AI is, well, let me, can I do everything for me? That actually only harnesses maybe like 20 or 30% of the potential of AI because it's not actually good at doing that yet. And it will rob you of the ability to actually think about like, how do I architect? What problems am I actually solving for? What problems do I want AI to do right now? Because maybe it's automation, because maybe they're like things that I want to try versus what are things that I still need to learn because it's going to give me the critical skills, the critical thinking skills along the way of doing them. And that's a really important framework that one of my favorite product management leaders, Teresa Torres, she wrote Continuous Discovery Habits, like the Bible for product management. She has a whole series in Claude Code right now, and she's basically has this framework of like differentiating into areas where you use AI because you know how to do it, and it's really about getting efficiency versus I still need to learn it, and I do not want to rob myself of learning. Can I work with AI to learn, but specifically like differentiating those two things? And the third one, of course, there's environmental concerns. There's a lot of controversy about energy use, and that especially applies to the multimodal models. Like generating an image is a lot more expensive, as well as cost, IP theft. I'm not going to get into all of that, but these are really important considerations that we all have to wrestle with as people in the world. All right, covered a lot of content. We're going to talk about job hunting. Any initial questions or comments before I do that? All right. Quick
I have a
poll.
question.
Oh yeah, Daniel, please.
You said something about AI bubble, and you also said that I believe in like something like on
Sure.
around those lines. What do you believe there is a bubble, or like what do you actually believe in?
So I'll give my high level view since I know that that's not what most people here came to hear is my opinions on these types of things. I believe that it's a technology with a lot of transformative potential. I've worked at companies that are leveraging AI, and even at Babson, there's a lot of cool AI projects going on. I've also seen a lot of waste in the industry and a lot of projects that are being deployed. And so I think 2 things can simultaneously be true. There can be overinvestment in speculative technology, which I would call a bubble, that is fueling the stock market. And there can also be significant under-leveraged potential from technology that people haven't dug into, partly because they're not applying like the Babson, like the entrepreneurial framework. They're just like, let's try generative AI without asking what's the problem to be solved? How do you break it down? Who are the users? How do you like actually map that out? I think Bill Gates says people overestimate what's going to happen in like the next 2 years and underestimate what can happen in the next 5 years. I think that's like probably the case with AI. All right, so we'll do a quick poll. If you guys want to pull out your phones, we'll just do a quick poll on, do you use AI in the job search process? Make it a little bit interactive. Okay, so AI is becoming really prevalent in the job search process. Even in this classroom, we have a lot of early adopters. You know, a couple of people still new, still on the fence. A couple of people have tried it. So it's kind of like when I did a poll this week for my newsletter, I asked, you know, AI proficiency, beginner, novice, expert, and we got it spread across all the way at Babson. And it seems like, you know, we have a little bit of self-selection here, so we have a bit more on all the time and trying it once or twice. Anyone like to comment on how you use AI right now for job searching? Do you feel like it's working particularly well? Do you feel like, you know, you could fine tune it? Delzan?
I mean, I've used it once or twice. So, but mostly if it's like on LinkedIn, I kind of see like, you know, how it matches my resume and like all the skills kind of pop up. Like I think the prompt comes up, like the profile matches.
So you use the job match feature. Nice. Did you have one?
Yeah, if I see like a job listing that seems attractive, I'll just copy the entire thing into Claude or ChatGPT and say like, find me 10 similar.
And does that work for you?
Pretty well.
Great. Abhi?
Yeah, I use it to write my LinkedIn reach outs and emails. So if I find job opening with a connection, say I write my own stuff, but then AI can really help you with its message part.
Mm-hmm. So kind of broadly speaking, I think 3 categories. Hi, welcome, please. We have food over there as well, I think. I think broadly speaking, 3 categories I think that were mentioned. Pre-built AI tools, recommendation engines, for example. I worked on a couple of those when I was at EBSCO, right? Like job match, here you go, we'll do an analysis. Taking an existing set and finding other things that are like it, getting inspiration. And then I think the third one around outreach content, which makes a lot of sense, right? We're in an era where it feels easier than ever to reach out to people, but it feels like the bar has also been raised for like what personalized messages look like. You know, it used to feel like, you know, you could just send a LinkedIn message and as long as, you know, there was some type of connection, people would be likely to respond. But now it's like everyone has AI, everyone has LinkedIn. How do you do that effectively? Great. So I'm going to go back to the deck. So one of the key points that really informed my approach to AI with job searching is this data that I found to be anecdotally true as well, that networking is 20 times more effective at securing interviews and cold applications. I think we've all heard that generally at Babson. You need a network, you need to, you know, use the tools and build those connections. But I think practically it might be harder to do in practice sometimes. But I ground it in this because when I think about the applications for AI, I think less about the problem to be solved as I need to cold apply faster. And I think more about the problem to be solved as I need to improve my networking strategy and I need to figure out how to accelerate that pipeline or make it less painful. And that's how my current implementation of AI or career tracking works. So this is a high-level overview of one of the tools that I use. I use Claude Code to set this up, and it's just a skill that's in Claude Code. I call it the career tracker. On the right-hand side, you can see a table that lists all of my current active opportunities, and I literally just asked Claude Code yesterday, just generate this table. And so it'll pull it from my active Excel spreadsheet that Claude Code has access to and updates every time I chat to it. And I'll do a quick demo on that. But the goal here There's a little bit of like manage the ADHD brain. There's a little bit of like get my quick updates in. There's a little bit of like get me ideas. The big thing is having Claude with the agentic capabilities at that point in time can enable me to then work with the AI and work with my tasks in a more dynamic way than, let's just say, ChatGPT, I need to find a job, help, right? Or find more like this. So a couple of features of this application. I can quickly see where I'm at. I can brainstorm opportunities, and then I can log actions and next steps. So I did record a 4-minute demo on this that I'll show on the next slide. One of the things about working with AI agents is that they take a little bit longer. So for example, with Claude, unlike a ChatGPT where you get a response in like 10, 15 seconds, with a Claude, it might be like a minute for each response, depending on how quick or how fast. So I recorded it for the purposes of time.
In this demo, I'm going to show the capabilities of using Claude Code as my career tracker. In the window, you can see the first prompt that I had asked the AI, which is, what is the current status of my career pipeline, and to visualize my top opportunities. What's interesting here is where you see this green dot, read one file, is it actually opens my relevant career files, locally located, and is able to traverse those with persistent memory. The reason that's important is because we can use this to continue our progress session over session, unlike with a ChatGPT or something like that where you have to start fresh every time. This is a major advantage that AI agents have over traditional Gen AI implementations. You can see here we have a pipeline response, and you can do some cool things. Right now it is visualize my top opportunities. I have indeed accepted the Babson AI fellowship, and I have a couple other roles in the pipeline as well. It's also noted some of the unexplored areas that I could definitely look into, and also some of the things that haven't been working. Cold applications don't work. All of those have been very low odds, and I have not gotten any response. What has worked has been referrals and warm contacts. So let's say that I am not in a mode of just wanting to see my pipeline today, but I really want to explore unconventional opportunities. I say I'm interested in civic tech, which is this whole area of technology related to infrastructure powering the government. If I'm willing to move to New York, what options would open? And the big thing here is I'm not looking for hardcore research, because that is not what this AI agent is proficient at. Claude Code can spin up web retrieval agents, and it is fine at that. But there are other AI agents that I would much prefer to use instead, like Perplexity or Scite.AI if I'm doing scientific research. My goal here is inspiration, and to see if anything catches my fancy, so to speak. We look here at the initial response. It's pretty straightforward. It has my resume. It has my jobs that I've historically been interested in. And so it's able to tailor some of the background and the recommendations here. So yes, New York City government, specifically technology and innovation, Office of Data Analytics, that seems right up my alley. Or even when it talks about like the types of public benefit corporations, these types of like incubators that build products for low income New Yorkers, that leverages my type of background to social impact. That very much sounds interesting. So we can use it to get an awareness of our pipeline, and we can use it to do some high level ideation. But what if we want to actually track things? And that's actually my core use case. What if you just want to use this as a really fancy tracker to make progress? And so that's where this third prompt comes in. Let's say I've talked with a few Babson students who are interested in doing AI consulting with me. How might we structure this for the summer? Let's track this as an opportunity. So you get the usual AI response, right? You get the usual recommendations from my ChatGPT that you would normally get when you ask a prompt like this. But you also get the green dot, right? Read one file, and then you actually see this applications.csv, which is locally located, right? It's on my Windows. I mean, I can open it right now and navigate to it. It's right here. This is what the AI agent went in and directly updated to add to the tracker. You can see right here, Babson AI Consulting Venture, Babson students, and it provides some high-level info. And the big thing here is that this makes it so much more interactive. Now you can actually just have conversations and make progress on your career goals. And so you can see it's added it to the tracker as under pipeline, and then it also has some emergent capabilities. For example, because it has my resume, because it has my background, because it knows the roles that I'm actually doing, it can actually ask me things like, hey, you are actually starting this Babson AI Innovation Fellowship. It's a part-time role. It starts now through the summer. Would that actually conflict with this new idea that you had around AI consulting with students? That is a great question. I hadn't thought about that before I prompted this. Those are all the types of things that you can front load, those type of insights, because the context is right there for the AI agent. So that.
Questions? Daniel.
To your point, you said that AI agents, that generate code, in a way, it's great for people that are not super like tech savvy.
Yeah.
For somebody that understands the concept of AI, right? Have a very high level of like how to navigate it, but don't have a high level understanding of like how coding works. What's the best way to start something like this?
So I had one of my friends in my section 3 cohort. I showed him what we could do here. And after like 10 or 15 minutes, you install Python, you install Claude Code locally, and then you just chat with it. And that's it. And you can say, set up my directory, set up my projects. The hard part is installing it and getting used to like opening a command window and talking to it. That's the hard part.
And do you use the subscription model? Like, do you pay for Claude or use the free one or?
So for that one, it is a paid for Claude Code specifically. They have 2 models right now. You can pay as you go, or you can do Claude Pro, which is like $20 a month.
Yeah.
And that one most recently got added so that now with that monthly subscription, it'll include like Claude Code as well. And so there will be usage limits, but it's pretty sufficient for like what you would need to do in a week.
And do you think that the $20 a month one, it's like for beginners, is kind of like a good sweet spot?
It should do almost everything you need to do in a week.
Just a plug, like if you're uncomfortable using the terminal or the command lines, Anthropic, they also came up with Claude Core,
That's right.
which actually is installed on your computer. They have versions for Windows, Macs, and you would not need to be fiddling around. Like, just like how Nathanael did it, you can talk to it and it actually updates, has good context of what's in your computer, what files you're working with, and makes updates.
Only thing I would add to that comment, which I totally agree with, Teresa Torres, again, she's just one person, argues that most business professionals, and I would say especially students, should not use Claude Cowork because it will be a crutch to learning to work with Claude Code, which can do everything Claude Cowork does and more. But it could be a good stepping stone. That's just one opinion. Try it at your own risk.
There's a question in the chat as well.
Oh, perfect. Are you able to read them out?
I'm not on the.
Ivy had a question here.
I mean,
Yeah, I had a question about the Excel part. So when it says it's updating, is it updating to a local file or,
local file.
okay, so not like a copy and then you export?
No, so the way that it works is unlike the ChatGPT and the Claude that you might be used to, which are all cloud hosted, this is all running on my computer. So it is like getting some of the responses from the API, like from their servers, but all of the content, all of the actual like processing, it happens locally on my computer. That makes sense. So that's why, like, for example, if I want to run like local AI models and have Claude set that up for me, then I can do that, and then they'll be just running on my computer, for example. Ami?
Yeah, like another plugin. Say this is just one of the models that are out there at Project. ChatGPT, like or OpenAI, they came up with their own version of it too. It's called Codex. So if you're already well integrated into those systems, you can always try different.
Yeah, Gemini, Google's Gemini just launched an IDE as well, which is the technical term for what we're doing here. Claude Code is recognized as like the industry benchmark best. All of the others are basically trying to copy Claude Code. There's a lot of like data showing that, like, for example, like Claude Code had to block Grok because Grok was trying to train all of their coding capabilities off of Claude Code. A lot of it is like the infrastructure. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity right now. It's a great time to be learning. Let me see if there's a way I can get to the.
I can read it to you. I got it already.
Thank you so much, Yashiga.
We have 2 questions. Do you have recommendations on searching for salary averages that will support offer negotiations?
Let me repeat that, just make sure I heard that. Recommendations for researching salary averages for negotiations. I would break that into a 2-step problem. Number 1, I need to understand, maybe a 3-step problem. I need to understand national salary averages. I need to understand compensation in my target range and area, and then I need to negotiate it, right? Those are kind of like the different jobs to be done. So you could work with a ChatGPT or Perplexity. They'd both be fine in a task like this. And you would say, for my first problem, help me find the data sets for this. Salary data sets for my specific target area. And maybe they say OSHA is a great place. OSHA has a data source over here that you can use. And you say, great, that's like part one, right? Part two is, then you can say, in a Claude Code or directly, okay, write me a dummy guide. This is what I did for my BCE project. Write me a dummy guide to merging this data in Excel, right? Like literally, like I want step 1, 2, 3, 4, and I want it to say, go to this link, download it, step 2, and like just walk me through it. And you can use that for complex data sets. The big thing is to make sure that you are tracking that context, because if you're doing it yourself, unlike in a Claude Code situation, you just have to make sure that like along the way, you are retaining understanding of what steps you're doing and why. But I would just break it down. For something like that, there are also like unconventional sources, like the H1B database is a really good one on all like salaries and roles and things like that. Obviously career advisors, but yeah, I think the big thing is just break it down and then identify data sources.
Second question, does Babson offer any AI subscriptions to students?
That is a great question, and I will need to get back to you. Erica says no. Okay, so what I can say is Babson is launching a new platform called Nav AI for AI agents. That's something that a couple of us are working on in the AI fellowship. And so it's like brand new. Accenture built it for Babson. And so they're actively looking at how do they actually make it like relevant and useful for students, like getting to that next stage of use. But that might not be for a little bit here.
And Gemini is also free for students.
That's right. Yeah, Gemini is free for students, and most like ChatGPT and Perplexity have like free tiers as well. Claude does as well, but Claude Code would be different. But yeah, I think Gemini's command line tool, if you wanted to experiment with some of this stuff for free, is free. Any other questions?
To add to that, a great website to check average salaries would be Glassdoor. And the reason being because it also gives you like company culture and it's real input from people that actually.
Levels.fyi too. For check roles.
So I know we got a little technical, but this is what we're here for. Any other comments or questions before we go forward?
One more thing. There is a outcomes index and research tools in Career Connect that has a lot of salary information, comparison information, like years before versus now. So when you, on the drop down, it's under research tools, there's a salary database, an outcomes index, offer timeline. So there's a bunch of things there that could be interesting.
Thank you. It's a great suggestion. All right, so we will keep moving along. So that's a little bit of AI for the job search. The next part I want to talk about is AI for research. So many dimensions we could go about. I love research. It's part of my prior career. But let's just start with some basics. When it comes to research, the tools really matter here. So there's at least 3 categories of AI tools that I leverage currently. You have like the large language mainstream models, what we would call foundational AI models, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. They're trained on historical documents and they have access to some info on the web. The big thing is that for research generally, it's less accurate. I prefer Perplexity for web-based research because it's a lot better at retrieving information on the internet. Perplexity was actually the first one that had like internet retrieval before ChatGPT and the others ended up adding it in to follow in Perplexity's footsteps. So that's a good one, and that has free tiers. And then the third one, which I want to give a plug for, Babson Library just acquired it this year. Scite.AI, it's a company that I actually worked with in a prior life. They are one of the most innovative scientific research AI companies that I've seen. The founder, he actually sold his company and exited for quite a good deal. And basically they've built this infrastructure that takes all of these, all of the citation statements that in all of the scholarly scientific literature and breaks them down into chunks that the AI can work with and parse in a way that practically no other library database has access to because of the unique agreements that they built with all the publishers. So they have a really cool AI assistant that they've built as well. And this is free for Babson students. It is limited to scientific research and especially STEM. So like humanities and social sciences is a bit of a gap. But for scientific research is really good. So here's an example that from my personal experience, my team last semester for Beta X, we had this idea. It's a red light electric shaver for SharkNinja. And the research question was, how does adding a red light LED to our proposed product impact overall battery life? So just kind of showing you how I used AI. So there's two tools that I really turned to here, which was Perplexity and Scite for the reasons I mentioned previously. So the first sub-question that I kind of thought through was what goes into calculating battery life, right? Like if ultimately you want to do the calculations, you need to understand the key determinants. And that's where Perplexity is a good general overview. Here are the key determinants, and then it has like the general like consumer overview from that perspective. The second element is how much power would red light LEDs draw? That is a scientific question. And that is actually established in the literature. And you can actually get it by looking at the power density requirements for a technology like this. And so I am at no ways technical in this area whatsoever. But by being able to quickly look through the scientific literature and basically determine, okay, red light LED, this is technology for healing the skin. For clinical efficacy, you basically need it to be around 12 plus centimeters, milliwatts per centimeter. That's just like the industry data point. Just like you'd say, you know, like with anything else, there's like a baseline metric. So with that, oh, I think someone has unmuted. Okay. So with that, what you basically get is, okay, this is the power output that's required. You can do some calculations to determine if I were to apply that across the product and what I'm looking to do, what would the power drain be? And ultimately, we were able to project with directional accuracy that our battery runtime for our product would be 30 minutes, whereas competitors like 50 minutes. And it's like, that's pretty good for Beta X, and you actually have like the data behind it, and you can actually point to the scientific literature. And so for me, this is how we can accelerate for, again, non-technical people, which I used to be, and now I'm less so. How you can actually get to some of these more engineering, research questions in the prototyping phase. I'll go to you in a second, Daniel. I saw that there were some questions in the chat. Does someone want, and I saw someone unmuted. Are there any questions on the WebEx?
Yeah, so does this, wait, it's back to the AI subscriptions. It's like, does this differentiate if you have a paid subscription?
Does what? Sorry.
I'm not sure myself. Does this differentiate if you have a paid subscription?
So just to restate the question, so my understanding of what the person is asking, does like the strategy for using AI and even like the tools available like change based on paid subscriptions?
Yeah, she rephrased it to say, in other words, are AI paid subscriptions more accurate?
No and yes, which is the Babson end. No in the sense that the models, like newer models don't have access to better information. That's just not how it works. But newer models, let's use a ChatGPT, for example. Every year they come out with new models, and they first release those to their premium or like their super fancy enterprise tiers, and then it goes to premium, and then it goes to free, and that's kind of like the cascading, similar like how the iPhone, they do like, right, and they cascade it down. The newer models don't have more research. They are just better at answering questions and structuring their logic, and therefore they might be better at retrieving the research that they already have access to. The truth is, if you kind of think through every problem with a lens of how do I break this down and use it for the correct purpose, you can use most open models to do what you want. But it really comes down to really thinking through how to use it. If you're looking for like, for example, like a ChatGPT to give you good web-based information, it'll be very hit or miss, right? The model itself might not be very good at pulling that information, and the citations might be made up. And even if you do the paid one, it might increase the accuracy a little bit because it'll have more reasoning built in. I should check my sources. It's like one of the steps, for example. But if you use a Perplexity out of the gate, even on the free plan, you'll have a higher accuracy rate because it's more likely to use citations, for example. You still need to think through it, but and there is like economic implications here, and it is, you know, like the like the gold rush. There is economic inequality at play here. But there are ways to use all of the tools now very intelligently, and it's becoming very democratized, even if it isn't democratic.
Zan, you had a question.
Yeah.
Answered it though, but it was mostly about the citations and sources, like how accurate is it, and can it take you back to the source? How, like, when you pull the data, is it like accurate enough directly in your research, or do you have to like double check?
It's not, with AI, it is never, so there's two types of systems that they broadly talk about in like computing and probability. There's a probabilistic system, and then there's a deterministic system. So a probabilistic system is one in which you say, you know, ChatGPT, I want you to write me a story, and it'll predict what could happen, but you can never lock it down. A deterministic would be to say, I'm writing a choose your own adventure story, and I'm going to code it that when the player presses yes, here's what happens. When the player presses no, and it always does that. Or when you hit in a calculator 5 + 5, it will always run these calculations. Whereas if you ask ChatGPT 5 + 5, it'll get better and better at grounding, but it's still probabilistic, and it'll still say, well, in these contexts, 5 + 5 = 10. Unless there's some training data that says 5 + 5 = 11. And so that's where breaking apart the task is really helpful. Is it a deterministic task that you're looking for, or a probabilistic task? Very like complex technical, but a simple way to think about it is like, for example, with research. When you are, like, let's use a large data set example. Coming up with an idea of all the different data sources that could be possible for a given like BCE project, that's like a good probabilistic thing. There's not necessarily like one or two just set answers, but how to retrieve data from a given US data source, that's pretty deterministic. It's in the documentation. You may need a probabilistic model to traverse that right now, but like the answer is like, you have to send in the query in this way. There's no room to guess. But if you're like writing outreach or copy, you can have 100 versions. They could all still be correct. And so that affects a lot with accuracy. And because AI models are not deterministic by nature, generative AI, they're probabilistic by nature, any research activity with them that is not inherently grounded, and I'll use that word a couple times here, grounded, it's this idea of connecting the AI to a database, right? That's like a standard method that we use with like a lot of like rows and columns, and it has a schema that you can actually navigate. When you connect AI models to a database, they're much more reliable. When you connect an AI model to like a knowledge graph, it's much more reliable. Basically, when it has a clear, this is what you should do, kind of thing. Long answer, but hope that was helpful. Daniel?
Just a quick question. So given the subscription fatigue and using like so many different AI tools, do you believe that like if you were to choose one of the plans to like pay for instance, like the Claude, like the $20 subscription, is there like a particular one that you like if you were to pick just one tool to use at all times for writing codes, for like doing research and all that, is there like a best way to do it, or you always have to use multiple different programs? And the reason why I'm asking, because especially for somebody that, doesn't like to be in front of a computer all day, it feels like a little bit daunting to be using like 5-6 different programs instead of, you know what I mean? Like in that case, if you're trying to simplify, what would be your go-to?
It all comes down to the goal, right? If the goal is to maximize your learning in a world where employers are going to expect you to have AI readiness, using one tool will help you, but it won't get you all the way there. But if your goal is to start learning by building and try a couple things, and you want to build some proficiency in one area and not spend more than a couple hours a week and just really, focus it, you could have the one tool, and you can have a podcast by some leading AI practitioners, right? And for example, and you could focus on how do I build within this particular environment. So, I mean, I hate to sometimes give the Babson answer, right? Of it depends, but I think that for this particular instance, if your goal is diversity of learning, then you have to try different things. And that's why, because my current goal is diversity of learning, so I have to try different things. That may not be everyone's goal. Your goal might be, I want to learn just enough so that when I start my job as a consultant, that when they, ask me an AI question in that interview, I have a decent grasp, that I can speak to it. And that when I get on the job, I don't want to use AI more than 20%, but when there are certain tasks, I have a framework to put through. Okay, great. you could certainly pick one system and work with it and build your framework that way, kind of thing.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Great question. All right. We had a lot of discussion here. So we'll just be brief and see if anyone has something they wanted to share. Basically, do you have a current research task that feels like a waste of your brain that you'd like to put into the group and we can talk about it, break it apart, and how would we break it apart? Or have you ever had a research question that you gave up on because it just felt like too hard or difficult to do? Just see if there's any takers.
It's like kind of when you have like hypothesis and you want to like prove your hypothesis with kind of the trusted journal, but usually it's kind of paid website that you have to go through.
Yep.
So I think AI still cannot help with it.
Is that a hypothesis or a question?
Maybe you can answer like how do we use this AI to help us to get the trusted source from trusted journal?
And it goes back to the issue Delzan raised as well. It's a great point. Paywalled research is paywalled for a reason, right? This is an industry that I worked in, right? Thousands of academic publishers work with faculty like those at Babson to get their research published and then put into these like prestigious journals. And then those journals are sold back to us, usually through these libraries and library subscriptions, like at EBSCO where I worked. Copyright law being what it is, most of that research is inaccessible. Some of it is under a model that is increasingly prevalent called open access, where it is on the internet. And as a result, when you see a lot of like ChatGPT is able to reference research, it's usually because it's been open access. Like it'll say like archive. Archive is a really common one. Archive is like one of those repositories, like ARXIV. It's one of those repositories where like, let's say, you know, we have like a leading Babson faculty member and they do some cutting edge AI research related to entrepreneurship. Now it is more common to put your preprint, like the version of your article that has not been published, into one of these repositories so that it can be more easily discovered before it ever gets scooped by a journal. But of course, that's not peer reviewed. Of course, that's just preliminary. Changes may happen throughout the process. But a lot of the AI models are like grabbing that. So there is a risk, right, with the current models. All of the major publishers and research providers, including EBSCO where I worked, are actively in trying to implement AI as fast as they can to make it so that you can use their services to traverse the knowledge base. One of the reasons that I like Scite is because it's the first commercially available one that we have access to at Babson, but also just first commercially available one that has the entirety of, or the majority of scientific literature. Doesn't have like the psychology literature or like the entrepreneurship or management or MBA literature, but it has like the engineering and like the chemistry and those types of things. And so it's very helpful for those types of problems. But it is a very, it's frankly speaking, an opportunity spot for future entrepreneurs, so to speak. Awesome. All right, so we'll keep going. AI for entrepreneurs, as we were just talking about. So this is from the 2025 GMAT Corporate Recruiters Survey. What are the top skills that they see for graduates and MBA graduates? And it maybe isn't a surprise, but it kind of is shocking how much it is rapidly, increasing. Skills in using AI, technology, IT skills, data analysis. I mean, these are all things we're learning at Babson, but I think it's really important to personally work on these and being able to speak to them in addition to just coursework. And so with that in mind, 5 ways to just think about AI as an entrepreneur. I think like AI can be applicable to any startup venture that you work on. So just 5 examples that I was thinking of. Market research, right? Confirm the market is real before you bet your time and capital on it. There's a lot of tools around that. Customer insights, catch the insight that you almost missed in that customer interview because you have all the notes there. You can just do a pass. You look for the customer sentiment, look for any other things that I might have missed. Landing pages, right? A lot of like non-software people may not think about this, but like just let's say, Louis, you have an idea, you want to start this like engineering, a product, and you build this perfect like chair, but you want to validate that the demand is there before you go live. We call that in strategy like a smoke screen test. Well, with AI, you can now build a landing page for that, and you can actually make a Google ad for it, and for like less than a cent per click, you can have 100 customers validate and sign up for it with pre-orders to determine if you actually want to build the product. And so it's not just for software products either. Brand building, customer service, those are a couple examples. So how do we get started? There's a lot here. My goal with this workshop was really to inspire and show you some of the things that are possible. Maybe in subsequent workshops, I'm happy to chat afterwards. We can get into a lot more of the technical of how to set this up. But here are some initial tips and approaches that I would recommend. Talked about this a little bit. It's the Babson fundamental. Start with the problem that affects you, break the problem down, identify the tools to help with the step, and then really just experiment, document your learnings, and iterate. One of the things that I do at the end of many of my sessions with Claude Code is I'll just say, like, what did we learn from the feedback that I gave you today? And let's log those somewhere. And if we have time, I'll show you guys one of those logs from a session where I actually built a lot of code with Claude Code and ended up releasing one of the Canvas tools that I mentioned in my newsletter. And at the end of it, I was just like, look through all of our notes and like write a introspection guide on like everything you learned from this, and the purpose isn't because it's sentient. So it's like, oh, it learned. The purpose is that it's all documented in a concrete way so that if the next AI agent takes a pass, it can read that and say, okay, got it. So I need to do these 5 things every time kind of thing. And I need to learn to not do this, for example. So just a couple examples, right? So like a problem could be, I need help with my resume, right? Break it down. Is the core problem my resume or the fact that I don't really even know what type of jobs are good fit for me, right? Do I know what my ideal job would look like if I saw it tomorrow? Right? As with anything else, we do the 5 whys, we dig into it. And then we map it and we say, okay, what are our options, right? So there's a lot of different ways you could use it. You could look at, okay, what are the different career paths open to me? Okay, what are jobs that could be a good fit? What are potential mentors I could talk to? What are my assumptions about candidate market fit? Like I believe, for example, let's just say one of my assumptions is I believe because I worked in corporate strategy for a couple of years, that I'd be a great fit for corporate strategy teams in technology. Is that still true? Maybe. But maybe they look for consultants more. Maybe that's where they hire from instead, rather than ex-corporate strategists. Then you experiment, right? And the big thing here is I just want to show that like there's so many ways to think about this that it really just comes down to trying it. AI can look up existing jobs. Some of us have tried that. AI can look at my resume and ask me hard questions. Maybe less of us have tried that. That's a good one. Like just literally like, what have you done? What haven't you done? Why is there this gap? Is that something that you need to speak to in an interview? Is that something that's not clear in your resume? Or is it reflecting this piece of your career journey that is missing, that you've been looking for, that you're trying to put, but it's not there? And it actually represents what you should be looking for in your next job. AI to help me brainstorm, which of my Babson friends that you're talking to, right? It's like, okay, like this is what I'm looking for. My cohort is international, they've worked in these different industries. Honestly, I have no idea what I'm looking for right now. Who should I talk to next? Like, oh, well, tell me a little bit about them. Like, oh, well, you should talk to your friend from Latin America who's worked in banking because that will actually help you with learning more about the finance sector, right? It really just comes down to using it as a guide to help you think. But at the end of the day, thinking is one of those things that we don't want to outsource, even in an AI world. A few of my personal favorites, I use ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, I use Claude Code, I use Scite, Perplexity. We have this new Babson AI platform. Olama is a tool that you can use to run open source free AI models on your computer. So like the way it'll work is you'll download the application and then you can run it on in multiple ways. But the bottom line is you can then have an AI running locally for free as well. Because a lot of these AI models are also being built to be run, quote unquote, for free or like on your own infrastructure, right? People buying Mac Minis to run Claude Bot, like that's the same type of thing. Other AI projects I'm working on. So I mentioned a couple, but I feel I did not really get time to share with you guys as much as I wanted to. It took me a couple hours to pull all this together. I'm happy to chat about any of these if you'd like to learn more. Right now, I have a weekly MBA newsletter that I send out to my cohort. Around 60% of that workflow is with AI. That includes getting the weekly dining menu from Trim using the API. Also like large scale analysis for BCE. A fun one that I was telling Delzan about earlier, I now have Claude hooked up to Canva. So I can say like, okay, great, like pull from the Canva MCP, the slide deck that I had for Tech Club Dem. I literally did this earlier today. And on slide 26, what else can I add? Right? Because it can just pull that context and work with me more directly there. So I'm very excited about this space. I think there's a lot of potential. I think the last thing that I wanted to share is just some bonus about how I use AI with Claude Code specifically. And then once I'm kind of done with this demo, we'll just have like an open-ended time for questions, discussion, or any projects that you guys wanted to kind of get feedback on. So my Claude Code structure, what I wanted to show you guys here is that it's a file directory. I mean, it's not actually that complicated. Like it sounds like a coding system, but at the end of the day, it's just a set of folders that you set up with the AI agent to manage how you work. And I basically have it grouped into 4 areas: my career, all of my internship stuff, my student government, MBA cohort stuff, tech club, all the things, and then AI portfolio / AI project. So like part of the tech club thing is I had 7 drafts with AI to for the content for today's workshop. And for example, with that one, I was just like, write me the draft, and then but put it in a format like in Markdown so that I can open it. And I'm just gonna literally go through the draft that you write, and I'm gonna write in bold. And so I want you to look for the bold. I'm gonna write in bold the feedback under every point, because I feel like that would be fast. Just edit it. And so I just go through like version 1, and I just write like, this is too cheesy. You have an opener about like, hey friend, like no, like that's not gonna work, right? And just like give it that feedback and work with it iteratively. So kind of like there's a lot of opportunities. The sky's the limit, that type of thing. There's lots of fun stuff you can do here. I did mention this Canvas toolkit. Some of the people I think here are in my cohort, so you've seen this. I built a tool to grab all of the Canvas assignments that we get like with our homework and things from my account, and automatically export that into an Excel file with all the deadlines, and also directly into my Notion, so that I get like live deadlines and reminders. And the cool thing about this is that it is an actual like application that I was able to build using Claude Code, and I didn't code any of it, and I didn't need to have that hardcore technical proficiency. All I needed to understand was the high level architecture and what I was looking for, and clarify the different decision points. So I also have a demo on that that's a lot shorter that some of you have seen.
All right, I'm going to briefly demo the AI tool I built to get all of your assignments out of Canvas. So the first thing that you need is your API token from Canvas. There's instructions here on the left on how to get that. But assuming you have that, you just paste it in, press enter, and you're connected. And the cool thing about this is that you can select all of the courses or just a few individual courses. In this case, let's just say negotiations in BCE. I go down to export assignments, and I can immediately see a preview of those assignments here, the course name, the name of the assignment, even the due date, the points, and some other information. And then to download the Excel file, I just click download Excel file. I can open that up here and see it as a spreadsheet. And then I'm also working on publicizing the Notion integration that I built. Let me know if you have questions or feedback.
So in less than 5 hours, and I don't mean like working for 5, but like just like over like a 5-hour session, talking to Claude Code, which you can set up for yourself in less than 15 minutes locally, thinking about how to work with this problem, having this hypothesis, I have all these assignments. Is there a data structure that would allow me to? Yeah, there's a Canvas API. Claude Code, let's build a way to integrate that, to have a fully functional tool that now I have all of my assignments in my Notion database that will remind me every day, like, okay, this is what's due tomorrow. This is something this is one of the most kind of transformative things about AI. It's just that like these capabilities have never been possible until now. Okay. That's it. All right, so I am happy for just any questions about the presentation and or any open discussion. Yeah, Ivy,
Great presentation. Are you gonna make these demo videos available for us afterwards?
absolutely. Yes, please.
Yeah, so I'm an undergraduate, so I'd love to also have the demo videos being shared afterwards.
Did you sign up on Engage?
I think so, so.
Okay. I think the best way to do that, Avi.
Yeah.
It,
I can figure that out.
Great. So if you haven't signed up on Engage and you just showed up, talk to Avi.
Cool. And another question. Yeah, thanks, first of all, thank you so much for your presentation.
Oh, absolutely.
Very, very informative. And you know, I've always been super interested about like how do I use like Claude Code? Because I'm very like non-technical. And so I'm curious about what were some of the ways that either like you learned or that someone who you would recommend who's just starting off while having like light technical experience to be able to learn more about Claude Code and use cases in your real life, the same way how you're explaining, find a problem and then just do like make a fun project out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much a read the best article on this type of guy when it exists, and this particular instance, it does exist. Teresa Torres has a whole guide on how to use Claude Code, and that's kind of, so I will send those links in the follow-up, and we'll just arrange to make sure that everyone who attended gets that follow-up as well. But yeah, that's a great place to start.
Also, like a plug, just to answer your question, obviously like learning it on your own is great. But we are also planning another workshop where we actually dive into the technicals and maybe actually build a prototype and MVP from scratch. So be on the lookout, we'll be communicating. We're definitely planning something for that in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then if I said, could you go back to your contact information? I'd love to set up a time to talk as well. So I'm about to run, but.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Take care.
Yes, you had a question?
Yes, this is Hua, also MBA.
Hi, Juan.
And I think you mentioned something Babson AI. Do you mind to elaborate what resources that Babson have?
So I'm still learning. So that was a role that was like a job that they posted in the fall that I applied for, and that I'm starting. There's a couple other students that are starting as well. But I think the goal of that role is to basically help Babson as a college improve their AI offerings for the student body, such as like for students. So to like take that Nav AI platform that I briefly mentioned and actually make it accessible to you guys.
It's like cool. You guys are.
Yeah, and our goal is like, yeah, our goal is to make AI more accessible to the rest of the student body. So I can't speak to when, because we're literally just starting, but that is something that I'm really excited about. And if you want to chat more about it, I'm happy to chat next. Awesome. Lewis.
So in all the tools you started using, clearly you use a lot of them. What have you found? What have you found? What do you really use the most every day, and what do you feel like is most worth it? Like if we were to dive into it and really learn.
Claude Code. Yeah. It's what I use every day. I mean, everything from some of the career pieces, which are a little bit less this week, but a lot of like my prep for the workshop is just kind of like, okay, like I'm currently at like draft one with the Canvas slides, like review what I have so far, review my workshop outline, tell me what I'm missing, for example. Or even, you know, we had a particularly thorny problem for one of our BCE projects. And in that instance, I wanted to firewall Claude Code. So I created a folder just for that. I called it client project. I only put in high level information about the client, nothing that would indicate anything else, nothing confidential. And then I basically gave it the research task because it was a particularly difficult one. It was like around US river dredging, very kind of like technical data. And I was like, okay, like work the plan, make a comprehensive plan, tell me how you pull the data, work through it. And then usually it'll hit a point where it's like, I have an idea, I need to do web research. And I'll usually look at it and 8 times out of 10 when I look at it, when it does that, I'll just kind of say, no, don't do web research. I'm gonna spin up a deep research query on like a Perplexity or somewhere else. and I'm actually gonna give you those results. Please don't. That's not what you're good at, kind of thing. Does that help? Any other questions? That was on.
It's a very, I don't know, I think that's a very targeted question, but like my main issue with using AI for like anything like research, for even like work purposes is mostly like the confidentiality aspect.
Yeah.
Like the BCE, the reason I don't use it as much is because I'm assuming like a lot of like sensitive client information may get leaked online. And so if they're like maybe using Babson AI, does that help in any way?
It can, and using, for example, like Microsoft Copilot, which Babson does provide, can help, but even then they say don't upload anything confidential. And so then I find that to be kind of like, then why do I need to use this one? I mean, you worked in consulting. So, you know, like the best practice is really just to think about it as if you were going to do research on your own without that information and anything that's publicly available, right? Like, you know, we're helping a climate tech company in this sector, and I'm specifically looking at this type of technology related to hydrology, and I need to figure out how to map that data set. And then you know what your research questions are, and there could be like at least 100 companies that fit that criteria. But then basically the research questions are enough for the AI agent to start working. It really just comes down to thinking through like how do you sanitize it before you get it started. Any other questions?
In what way do you find useful Canvas moving into your Notion? Like, I understand that it's summarizes it, but there's a dashboard in Canva. How does it help you really move it forward faster than just using the dashboard and using Canva? Like, how is it more worth it to move it to my Notion?
You mean Canvas?
Yeah.
They're publishing. Fun. All right.
Barrier.
All right. I'm gonna try to do something which you generally don't like. It's not a good idea to do in demos, which is just to show something live you kind of prepared to show. I'm just gonna take out one of these. Slideshow. Great. So yeah, I could see it in Canva, in Canvas, or I could, but I work in Notion, and so I could just literally open up in my inbox and see that I have a notification. I can see, okay, like one of my things. I guess I did. And that's for AI workshop. Clearly, that's finished. Right. For my managing my business class. Choose a group topic to post to Canvas, and because this is where I work. It's very helpful for me. I get my notifications here. One of the things about Canvas specifically is that it doesn't notify you. And so if something's due in 2 days, you just have to kind of look. Whereas if you're constantly working in Notion, because I do a lot of other stuff in Notion, you see like this number 1 on the left side here, it's like that's actually an actual pop-up because it's time driven. And the cool thing about that with these standards, right? Like the date data in Canvas is a standard. And so when it imports it into Notion, it's not a text field. Notion recognizes it as a date and actually is able to create like an actual reminder deadline for me. That's my main value add. Yeah. I'd love your feedback, by the way, if you are hanging around or whether you hated or loved the workshop today. I have a quick survey up there. And I'll continue to take questions and just chat. And if there's any, even just like mini workshop-y, problems that you're working on, trying to figure out how you'd structure it, happy to chat about that too. Was there another question?
Send us the slides.
Absolutely. Yep, we'll send those out. Slides and recommended articles.
Yeah, recording, right?
And recording. All right. Well, thank you very much for attending, everybody, and I hope you have a great afternoon. I'll be here for the next 10 minutes or so.
Thank you, everybody. One last message before everybody leaves. We are planning a few more workshops